welcome back for another season of LTF on its new home of the LTF channel. This is the new home of LTF, and as usual, John is joining me. How are you doing, John?
Yes, very well, thanks. Good to be back from the summer and ready to go again. Duracells recharge for the LTF and all these commentaries. We're going to double the commentaries on my YouTube channel. And not forgetting the World Cup later on, so it's going to be a very extended season. So it's Christmas come early for us football fans today, isn't it? Or this year.
Yeah, it is. Well, so yeah, the new channel is here, as you can see. Obviously, this will be the first video on it. And you can follow the current football season of the Premier League from first day to last. We will be making our prediction for Friday, even though this is released on a Saturday. So yesterday's game, we will make the prediction on that. So you will already be able to tell us if we're wrong. But me and John have managed to survive the recent dramas with Burnley Football Club, that being Hanover and Andre Gray in itself. But we are going to be making our predictions today for the final Premier League table. Or John's got all 20. He's being brave and picking every single club. I'm going for my top 8 and bottom 3. Because of how last season finished, where basically 17th all the way up to flipping 8th were separated by 3 points. So anyone can really finish anywhere in that melee. But we'll make our predictions for the Premier League finishing positions. Obviously, there's still plenty of the transfer window still to go, so that may change when the window shuts. And of course, we'll do our usual predictions for the results of the first round of fixtures. And then we'll have a little bit at the end, which will be part of Let's Talk Football Extra Time, which you'll be able to see a little bit later in the week, where we talk about the recent Burnley transfer policy. But we won't get into that today. Let's start with the great thing, which is the Premier League table. Obviously, Burnley probably won't be any higher than 4th this season, but we're in 4th now alphabetically. That's as high as it's going to get for us.
Can we just end the season here when we play Champions?
Oh, yeah. Burnley in the Champions League. Could you imagine? Could you imagine Barcelona turning up on... forget a rainy day in Stoke. A rainy day in Burnley is the worst. Hell, a rainy day in Colchester yesterday was out... Well, I say yesterday. Yes. Was outrageous for Aston Villa. But anyway. So let's start with the dreaded bottom 3, shall we? Let's immediately get needled by people who don't believe that their team's going to be in the bottom 3. So starting in 20th place, I'm going to let you kick it off, John. Who do you think's going to finish bottom?
Well, well, first of all, can I just say at least one of the promoted 3 will stay up, but for the 20th place, I'm going to go with Brighton.
Interesting.
Well, they haven't. They have strengthened the team to a certain extent, but not, I don't think, with enough Premier League experience. Now, Chris Hughton's a decent manager. He's done a great job at the Amex. This is their first venture into the top flight for 34 years or whatever it is, 83 when they were last there. It will be a difficult season for them. They'll get good gates, they'll earn a few quid out of it, and they'll do well, but do well financially. But I just feel they haven't really strengthened enough. I don't think they have the Premier League know-how. I think they'll really struggle. I think they'll win a few games. I think they'll win a few games. They've got a big baptism of fire on Saturday evening against Manchester City to start off with, which I think might be I think it's going to be a long old season for them. It was a toss-up really between them and Huddersfield actually. But I'm going to go with Brighton. I just don't think they've strengthened, but not enough in terms of actual Premier League experience for me.
Interesting. I mean, Chris Hughton did a good job at Newcastle when he got them up.
He did.
I haven't put them in my bottom 3, funnily enough. I've actually starting in 20th place. Now, if anyone watched my video on the Andre Gray scenario, they will remember that I have predicted that Burnley will finish bottom, and I'm going to stick with that prediction for now. I think the transfer dealings that we haven't done, we failed to capitalise on particular situations. And we haven't strengthened in the right areas. I mean, yes, getting Jack Cork, great signing, brilliant stuff. Getting Charlie Taylor, now that I can remember his name. Obviously, the wing-back positions, we need at least cover. There was nothing wrong with Ward, there's nothing wrong with Loughton, but having that third guy gives a bit of competition to them. Plus, John Flanagan finally disappeared back off to Liverpool, thank goodness. So it made sense to sign that. But other than that, the questionable signing of John Walters, that could really backfire horrendously and be a complete waste of time, or it could work out really, really well, depending on who you ask. Who else have we signed? We've signed 5 players. We signed a backup goalkeeper, as I mentioned, in the grey ones, which made no sense because we've got plenty of young goalkeepers. Why not give one of them a chance to be the third player?
And Phil Bardsley as well.
Yeah, Phil Bardsley made it re-signing for the club after he originally played for us back in 2006, I think it was, and that was on loan from when he used to be a Manchester United player back then. He was quite a prosperous youngster back then. That was just after, funnily enough, we had that particular shirt when we had Gary Cahill, and boy oh boy could we use a player like that at the back. But yeah, I don't think we've done enough good business. I mean, it could change if we sign a striker with pace, if we sign a winger with a bit of pace as well and creativity, and a centre back, we might be okay. But right now, as much as Sean Dyche works miracles, I think this might be a step too far this year. And it will probably be the last season that we have Dyche as well, because I just get the feeling he's getting stonewalled in the boardroom because he's asking for reinforcements, and I don't think that the board are coughing up. So, sure, Vokes scored, 12 goals last season? He scored enough goals covered for Gray's mishaps. Barnes chipped in with a few as well. I'm sure Jonathan Walters will chip in with 5 or 6, but I don't think that's enough firepower to keep us up, and we've still got that massive hole left by Michael Keane, which either Heaton's going to have to pull off worldies every match, or we're going to be in serious trouble. So that's why I'm putting us bottom. I can only be surprised. I can only be pleasantly surprised by making that prediction. I was genuinely optimistic last year that we could stay up, but this year I don't have any of that optimism because of how poor we've been in the transfer market. So that's why I've gone for us in 20th place, as much as it pains me to do so. Of course, other people can dispute it with me as to who they think should finish bottom. But we'll move on to 19th. I'll start with my 19th. I've gone for another team that's had a lot of troubles in this transfer window. I've gone for Newcastle United. Might raise a few eyebrows, but very much a similar situation. Their squad's probably better than ours. Not by much, though, I don't think. They've got probably a better midfield and arguably a slightly better defence. But in terms of their strikers, they haven't really got a proven Premier League goal scorer. They're trying to get Lucas Perez from Arsenal, I think his name is, for something like 13 million, and they're getting stonewalled in that situation. So that's not going for them. As I think Rafa Benitez is going to get more frustrated as the transfer window goes on, and there's a good possibility that if he doesn't get what he wants, he's going to walk. I know he's said multiple times that he won't, but it's going to be hard for Newcastle. I think they've got a really big fan base, and obviously that massive stadium, which will help a lot. Believe me, the home advantage that Newcastle have is very, very real. But they're in a similar boat to us. You know, they've apart from the fact they've just come up from the Championship as champions. Obviously, last champions that went up stayed up. Whether that is the recurring, yeah, exactly. Whether that's a recurring trend or not, I don't know. But again, I just don't think they've done enough in the transfer window to keep them competitive in this league, because it's very brutal. If you don't take your chances, you don't get any points at all. So it's going to be tough for them. But like I said, this could still change. There's still 3 weeks left of the transfer window to go, and if everyone gets the business done that they need to get done, it could change my bottom 3 completely. Who have you got for 19th, John?
Well, I'm afraid, as much as it would, it's a fairy tale them going up last year for the playoffs, and I was honoured to cover their playoff win on that day at Wembley. Although it was a dire match in truth, but I was glad they won it. But I think they're going to struggle again this year. I'm going for Huddersfield Town. They have strengthened. They have spent £30 million on new talent, but they're all Championship players. They've not stepped up to the Premier League yet, which I think now. Don't get me wrong, I think David Wagner is a great manager. He's from Jurgen Klopp's stable, of course. He was Klopp's assistant at Borussia Dortmund many years ago. He came to Huddersfield, revitalised the club. He got Huddersfield up against all the odds, because people had them down for relegation and all that from the Championship last year. They had one of the lowest budgets, and they probably still have a similar budget to what we have, really. But I think they've not strengthened too well in terms of quality Premier League players. And it's a bit like Brighton in a way, because yeah, they've brought in Tom Ince and a few others, and they're having a go at it. They are spending a few bob, and good on them. You don't get this opportunity when you're a Huddersfield Town very often, and good luck to them. I hope they prove me wrong, but I've just got a feeling they haven't signed enough Premier League proven quality to warrant them being out. But they've got a chance. I'm not saying they haven't got a chance, but I just think they're just going to come up short. So I've got them down for 19th position.
And 18th?
I've gone for Swansea, purely and simply if they sell Gylfi Sigurdsson, which looks like being a very likely prospect. I hear Everton have been sniffing around him in the last few weeks.
Well, he hasn't been included in the squad for the first game of the season, so that
tells
possibly going through.
Well, if that happens then, and they don't replace him, I think Swansea will go. I think I have to say they have flirted with relegation for a couple of years now. Since Gary Monk left, they've been very lucky to get out of it. They were lucky to get out of it last year. They had they had a terrific run towards the last end of the season. I must admit, 3/4 of the season gone last year, I felt they were doomed. But Paul came out and pulled off the miracle. Could he do it again? It's hard to say, really. It also depends on the other teams like the Palaces and Burnleys. If Burnley invest and Swansea don't, then that's what I've got down here. I think it'll be a toss-up between Swansea and Burnley, but I'm going to go for Swansea because I think they'd probably end up doing what Sunderland have done in the last sort of couple of years as well. So it's a little bit of a mirror image to what Aston Villa went through and what Sunderland went through last year. So I'm going to go for Swansea to complete the bottom three. But it all depends on what happens in the last 2 weeks of the window. Can they replace Gylfi Sigurdsson? That'll be the burning question. But I've got them down at the moment in 18th position, with Burnley just outside in 17th.
Well, I'm with 13th. It's not 13th. 18th. I've got Huddersfield. I've also got them in the relegation zone. Similar reasons. As much as they've invested a fair bit, but generally speaking, a first experience of the Premier League is generally quite a brutal one. It's a recurring theme for a lot of clubs. I mean, your Blackpools. I mean, our first experience of the Premier League, as good as as nice a football we played, it got to about halfway through the season. The January window happened, and we fell through the floor, which is a good possibility of that similar sort of thing happening to Huddersfield. I just don't think they'll quite have the quality to keep them in the division. They'll have some blinding games, I'm sure. They, as you mentioned with Wagner, he has a fantastic style and very similar to Klopp in that regard. But I just don't think they'll have the quality. As much as they've invested well. They know that they need a big squad for the Premier League because it's a very, very daunting prospect. But I'd have them to finish off the bottom three for me. Now, when it comes to talking about the other teams, I know you've picked all the way through from 20th to 1st. If we go for our top 8 now, and then you can mention where you think all the other teams are going to finish, because
yes.
I was going to predict all of the positions, but the way that last season finished, you could literally separate 8th place to 17th with about 3 points. So it was quite the end of the season in terms of who could finish where. But starting off then in 8th place, John, who have you got to be the best of the rest, other than obviously Everton?
It was a toss-up between Leicester and West Ham, because I have to say Leicester and West Ham have actually, although they've not, I mean, Leicester haven't really done too much in the window, but they've got a really good nucleus of a squad there. I think they've got a good manager in Shakespeare. He held them together at the back end of last season. They had a terrific run, bar that horrible defeat to Spurs. I think they've been rested well. I think Iheanacho for Manchester City is a fantastic buy. I think Harry Maguire will strengthen competition at certainly in the back four. West Ham, it was a toss-up again. I mean, West Ham have invested pretty well. I mean, to get Javier Hernandez for £16 million, that's a good bit of business. But I just think Leicester... Exactly. But Leicester's now, where they finished a couple of years ago with Shakespeare at the helm, he played a part in the unexpected championship win. No Champions League football to worry about. I think they'll just pick West Ham to 8th place, so I'm going to go Leicester City for 8th place.
Mine was a toss-up, funnily enough, between West Ham and Watford. I think the business that both those teams have done has been exceptional.
West Ham, I've been impressed with, actually.
Getting Hernandez was quite the steal of the transfer
Me
market,
too,
I think.
West Ham now.
Watford, they've done some terrific business with the likes of Will Hughes, adding Andre Gray, which could work out for them. Obviously, the new manager Marco Silva can get the best out of players in itself.
He's brilliant, Marco Silva.
Nearly dragged Hull to that incredible miracle survival. They just fell short. But I've gone for Watford to finish 8th. I think they are going to be the surprise package next season. They're not going to be, obviously, they're going to be knocking on the door of 7th place, but obviously that is going to be very difficult to get Everton off that position because they're so far ahead of the rest. But they're a little bit behind. They're a little bit behind the top 6. That's Everton's problem. But yeah, Watford, they've done some terrific business. I think Marco Silva is going to get them playing some terrific stuff. They were always strong at home last season as well. So if they can pick up a few more away results, I think they could really break away from the rest and put themselves in 8th place, knocking on the door of the Europa League. You never know. Everton might have a dodgy season and they might be able to pip them to 7th. But I'm going to put Watford in 8th place. And a lot of people will probably guess that I've put Everton 7th based off of what I've just said, which I think a lot of people are putting them 7th because they are in that unenviable position of being better than most, but not quite good enough to be in the top 6. They did a little bit of good business, bringing Wayne Rooney back. I don't know how that will work out for them because he didn't have the best of pre-seasons. I'll be honest. Obviously, losing Lukaku will be a big hit for Everton to take. But they've got some good youth coming through. That's the thing with Everton. They promote quite a lot of youth products. A few came through last season. So I think they'll just stick where they are at the moment, which is in 7th place. And, Ronald Koeman's got something going on there. Perhaps they could have a run in one of the cups this year as an opportunity to perhaps make their way into Europe in a more strong way, but to win some silverware would be a good step for Everton. But yeah, I'm going to put them down as 7th. Have you put them there, John, by any chance?
Yes, predictably, yes.
Who hasn't put them there?
But I mean, we say 7th place. I think they've done remarkably well. I think Rooney coming back, that's a big coup for them. I mean, that softens the blow of losing Lukaku. He has the know-how, the experience, the will to win trophies, especially when it comes to cup games. I think they'll finish 7th comfortably. I don't think anyone will get there. I think they'll challenge Arsenal and Liverpool for the top 5 or 6. If they have a good run, possibly they could finish higher. But I would back them to win the EFL competition, the League Cup. I'm not going to mention the sponsor's name because I don't like pronouncing it. But I think if they're overdue a bit of silverware, and I think Rooney and co. I think there's a few experienced players there that have won trophies, been there, seen it, and done it. And I'd like to see Everton win something. So I'm going to back them to finish 7th and win the League Cup, actually, on top of it. Maybe I have a decent run in the FA Cup, but I think winning the League Cup will be and finishing 7th would still be a very respectable season for Everton, I think. But they've spent really well, and I think Koeman is a very, very talented young manager, and I think he'll get the best out of what he's got there. Obviously, Lukaku going. I don't know what the situation with Ross Barkley is. Is he staying? Is he going? But honestly, if he can get everybody on a level playing field and get everybody on the same in shape, I think Everton could have a very good season. If not, we've got them down for 7th, but I wouldn't put it past Everton if they have a really good run to finish a bit higher, maybe 5th or 6th place.
Okay. And the interesting partnership at the back between Ashley Williams and Michael Keane will certainly be something to watch.
I think Keane will do well.
It's a good move for him. I wasn't against him leaving for Everton. I thought it was a good move for him.
I'm the same with him. He earns his move. He had a good year last year for us, and good luck to the guy. He deserves it.
Okay then, so 6th place, John. Who have you got down for 6th? This will be interesting.
Yeah.
This is where
Arsenal.
You've got Arsenal down in 6th. Okay.
Yeah, because they've not spent enough. They haven't got enough leaders in the team for me. Defensively, I'm not convinced by them, although they defended quite well in the Charity Shield match on Saturday, the game I commentated on, and I thought they were okay. I think the problem is, I think they've only signed one quality player. That's all. Lacazette. And I think then there's a Sanchez problem. Is he staying? Is he going? The same with Ozil. Wenger, is he going to? They have the added problem now of not being in the Champions League. So now they've got to do Europa League, which is a Thursday, Sunday job. And as we've seen before, teams have struggled in that particular competition. Now, I think Arsenal may well suffer. I think the only way they could possibly realistically get back in the Champions League is to actually take the Europa League seriously, just like Manchester United did last season.
Yeah.
Maybe that was their competition, maybe to try and win, and they're good enough to win that. But I just think the teams above them, I think they've strengthened more significantly than Arsenal, and that could be a real, huge factor in where they finish. I think they're going to struggle this year. I think it's going to be tough. I think Man City have strengthened. Manchester United have done some excellent business. Liverpool are there or thereabouts, and they'll challenge for the top four, no doubt. Spurs, whether they get players in remains to be seen. But I think they're a better team than what Arsenal are, certainly in terms of individualism. And I just think Arsenal now. I think they need a quality centre half, and maybe they might get in the top four if they invest more than what they've invested so far. But at the moment, I haven't them down to sixth place for that reason. They haven't strengthened enough for me in the window, apart from Lacazette.
Okay, this is where I may start getting the ribbing, because I have in sixth place Spurs. Now, a lot of people are probably immediately they're going to be like, "You've put us below Arsenal. How could you do that after what happened last season?" Right? Wembley, for starters. Lack of signings, a second problem. And it's been shown in the past the teams that come incredibly close to winning the title, or being coming second, can drop off dramatically. We've seen in the past Liverpool, a perfect example. They never recovered from that either. They've never really been the same since they finished in second. Obviously, that led to Rafa Benitez being sacked and various stars being sold, and they never recovered. Spurs have already sold one of their stars, if you may, in Kyle Walker. Although a lot of Spurs fans seems to be turning around now, suddenly saying that Trippier is a better right back, despite the fact that us Burnley fans have been screaming that for the past year or two. Because Kyle Walker, as fast as he is, can't really defend too well and doesn't cross very well. Whereas Trippier can cross the ball in from the halfway line, which is a little bit more useful. But I just get the feeling the Wembley effect. Every single team that's going to be going to Wembley, they're going to be up for it because it's a day out at Wembley. Every single team, even if it's obviously Manchester United and Chelsea and Liverpool, they'll kind of be used to playing there anyway because a lot of them have been in finals recently. Arsenal are going to love going there. The last two times they've been to Wembley, they've picked up 2 pieces of silverware. So it's going to be, imagine. Huddersfield, they'll be going back to Wembley, the place where they had ultimately one of the greatest moments in their club's history. Burnley haven't been back to Wembley since we got promoted via the playoffs as well. It'll be a lovely time to go back to that. And then anyone in the FA Cup or the League Cup, could you imagine in the FA Cup draw a non-league team getting drawn away to Tottenham Hotspur? They'll get to go to Wembley. It'll be the closest thing they'll ever get to going to an FA Cup final. That, I think, is going to have a massive effect. Teams going to Wembley are going to love the occasion. Whether the pitch size suits Tottenham as well, it's going to be a big pitch. It's very different to the pitch that they played on at White Hart Lane. Whether they can implement their style of play on that will remain to be seen. But also the lack of transfer business of incomings. If you want to successfully sustain a title bid, you have to have strength and depth. The difference was last season Chelsea showed that. They had enough depth. You looked at the Tottenham bench, you didn't really see anyone who could come on and make a massive difference. Obviously, the great thing that they had was that Son deputised brilliantly when Harry Kane was injured. But other than that, they didn't really have anyone else to come off the bench and make a big difference. And to me, that's those two things combined, the Wembley effect and the not buying anyone. They could, in 2 weeks' time, they could have a tremendous rush on transfer deadline day. Who knows? Gareth Bale might suddenly become available, and imagine the scramble across the league for who would be able to try and buy him. I would be surprised if Tottenham wouldn't be interested in re-signing him. And he would be the perfect addition because it's You'd be buying a player who's used to play for you, has become successful, knows how to win trophies and league titles, and would then be coming back. But there's been no talk of that actually happening. But you never know what can happen on transfer deadline day, so that could change. Spurs again. This is down. We're still talking with 2-3 weeks left of the transfer window. These positions could change depending on what business they do. But at the moment, with the lack of business and the Wembley effect, I'm going to have Spurs down. And that's discounting, obviously, their involvement in the Champions League as well, which clearly drained on them last season because they failed to get through in it. So, yeah, for those 3 reasons, that's why I'm having them down as 6th place. And then we move on to 5th place, where I've put Arsenal for a second year running. They're going to finish 5th. Very similar reasons as to why you've put them 6th. Only signing Lacazette. It's yet to be seen whether a person from League One, or League 1, as it's called, can adapt to the Premier League. Zlatan Ibrahimovic did it, but he was again playing at coasting pace for about 5 years.
Yeah, so. I have to just a word on Lacazette. I commentated on him in the Community Shield last week, and I thought he played really well for the 50 minutes he was on the pitch, and I think he was unlucky not to score in the game. So I think he looks a good player, but
it's whether he can deal with the 38 games that are all going to be competitive. There's no walkovers in this league, or very rarely now.
No one's going to be a mug in the league.
In League 1, obviously, whenever Lyon were one of the bigger teams in that competition, and whoever they faced, really, they steamrolled it. It was only when PSG and Monaco came to town was when they had a bit of difficulty. So, it'll be interesting to see how well he adapts to the Premier League. But other than that, I don't really think they've done that great a business. And I know that I forget the guy's name who scored the equaliser for Arsenal. He looked a half decent player, but I don't know whether he's going to be able to adapt. It usually takes a season for a player to bed in, and it doesn't really make too much of a difference in the league position. So I'm going to have Arsenal as 5th. They'll probably win the FA Cup again. That seems to be the recurring theme with them, but. Yeah, I know a lot of Arsenal fans aren't going to be happy. They might win the Europa League. That might give them the opportunity to get into the Champions League. I think they should definitely take that tournament seriously, because trying to get into that top 4 is going to be a nightmare this season. Who have you got as your 5th and missing out on the Champions League, John?
I have to say, I hate to say it because I like Jurgen Klopp and I think he's a terrific manager, but I think Liverpool are just going to miss the cut unless they invest on some talent in the last 2 weeks of the window. I think it also depends on whether they keep Coutinho or not, because last night there was a Barcelona bid 90 million quid and Liverpool rejected it. How can they keep it? Yeah, I think where they could finish all hinges on Coutinho. If he stays for both windows, not just this window, because there could be a possibility they might start. If Barcelona don't get him in this window, they'll certainly try for him again in January and test Jurgen Klopp's resolve. So I think this all depends on whether, if they lose Coutinho, I've got them down for 5th place. Keep Coutinho and they keep the squad injury free, they could finish in the top 4. They might have a chance to finish in the top 4, but at the moment, I just don't think the squad depth is there in quality. I think Origi's not a 20-goal-a-season man. I think Mane, if they can keep him fit, will do well. I think Salah from Roma is a very, very, very good buy. Again, I'm surprised they haven't strengthened in the goalkeeping department. I don't think Mingele is the right goalkeeper for them. I think they should have gone after Joe Hart. He's gone to West Ham. I think they missed out there. I think Klopp's probably missed a trick there. I just think... also they've got Champions League football as well, which will be an extra on them a little bit. And they'll take that seriously because they love the European Cup, Liverpool, and we've seen that down the years. So bearing all that in mind, Chris, I think really, to be fair, I think they'll just miss out on the top 4. But it all depends on whether Coutinho stays or goes during the 2 windows this season.
Right, okay. So then, who have you got down as 4th?
By a whisker, Tottenham. Okay. The reason I say Tottenham is if they can stay injury free, the likes of Kane and Ali and all their big game players, Okay, they haven't got the biggest in squad depth, and I know they haven't strengthened, which I actually work with a Tottenham fan where I work, and he said to me that he's a bit worried that they haven't strengthened significantly. I do think they will make waves in the last 2 weeks of the window. I do think that, and if they can add 3 or 4 decent players to the squad they've got, then I think they've got every.
They don't even have to be amazing players. They've just got to be good role players.
Well, they don't. That's it. I mean, if someone can come in for Harry Kane and score as many goals as he has, then that would be brilliant. But I honestly think if they can keep Harry Kane and Dele Alli fit, keep their back four fit, I think Trips will come in and replace Kyle Walker. I don't think they'll miss Kyle Walker one little bit. They've got a very good goalkeeper in Hugo Lloris. So they've got the nucleus of the squad is there. If they can get 3 decent signings over the line and they can stay injury-free, I think they could actually do things this year. I think they'll finish 4th, and I think they could win the FA Cup as well. I think they're capable of winning one of the cups, and I'm going to have them down as cup winners this year. I just have a fancy that Spurs will win something this year, and I think it might be the FA Cup.
Okay, my 4th place is going to be Manchester City. As much as they've been busy in the transfer window, splashing money left, right and centre, they've all spent it on unproven Premier League quality in most cases. You know, the additions of... I mean, I don't know what the shirt people are going to do, but you've got 2 silvers in one place, which is going to be very difficult to deal with. I just don't think... I mean, the goalkeeper scenario as well. They should have... I mean, Joe Hart. Why? Why can't Pep Guardiola swallow his pride? You know... Joe Hart is the difference between finishing 4th, which is where I've put them, and finishing top 2 for me. You know, he will get you so many clean sheets a season. Well, he won't now because his confidence has been shot to bits because he's been thrown away by the club he loved so well, and plus, you know, everyone is literally criticising any tiny mistake he makes now. But I just don't think. I think this season is going to be the downfall of Pep Guardiola. I think he's far too stubborn. He won't adapt. He'll stick with his silly style of football that doesn't work in the Premier League, or in most cases it doesn't work. It works on the odd time when you go up against a team which clearly doesn't have the same quality. So, for example, like I would imagine a game. Well, we saw last season when Huddersfield played them. You know, they've come up this season. Huddersfield, you know, gave them an early setback, scored early on, but then, you know, 60 minutes later it was 5-1. You know, the difference in class was there. But I just think when it comes to the crunch time against the big teams, they're going to get found out. They're going to just be left to pass the ball around and get caught on the counter in most cases. And I just think they're going to make silly mistakes. I mean, Kyle Walker and Johnston, their back 4 has cost more than what most countries spend on their own defence. You know, but the key for them is company. If he is injured, if he gets himself a big injury, I would think that they would have to be very worried about finishing even top 4, because John Stones right now is still a liability. Kyle Walker, when he was at Spurs, has been proved not the best defender in the world as it is anyway. You know, their left back, I don't even know who their left back is. They've released all of their wing backs. It's Danilo. Is it Danilo? I know that they bought so many, it's hard to keep track. But
I thought you were going to say Armadillo then for a minute.
No, Danilo. They bought him from Real Madrid, along with various others. But again, somebody with no Premier League experience. I mean, it's come from Real Madrid, sure, but he hasn't been playing for Real Madrid in most cases. Yeah. So that might be a problem for the Champions League. But yeah, I just think Pep's style isn't going to work out. He's going to get found out again this season, and if he's not careful. I'm sure they will spend billions in January to try and make up for the mistakes that they've made. But I think by the end of the season, I think Pep Guardiola will be out of the job. I think his stubbornness, his inability to swallow his pride with the Joe Hart situation is going to come back and bite him. So that's where I'm going for 4th place. Now, for automatic qualification to the Champions League from 3rd, I've put Liverpool. Now, I'll give my reasons. Obviously, their signing of Salah, brilliant.
Yeah, it is a good signing, that.
Mane, they will not lose him to the African Cup of Nations this year, which means he'll be in it for longer, obviously, provided he doesn't get injured as well. So he'll be around a lot longer, bigger presence. Obviously, if they keep Coutinho, it looks like they're going to play very, very hard ball with Barcelona. I don't think that they're going to sell him. They're going to be as stubborn as Red Bull Leipzig were with them. If they somehow manage to flip him, blag their way to not getting punished for signing Virgil van Dijk, I think if they somehow manage to get their grubby claws on him, that'll massively help them, although I don't think they will. Southampton have definitely taken the right stance in letting him basically rot on the bench for his behaviour. But I think, generally speaking, if they keep everyone fit, if they somehow manage to get Sturridge firing as well, they've got good quality. Mane obviously scored plenty of goals last season. Salah looks one heck of a signing, and as long as they can get Sturridge at least partially fit, so he scores enough goals. Origi has been shown to deputise quite well. And obviously Firmino and the likes can also come in with a lot of goals, and Coutinho can just smash them from outside the box. It just more falls to the defensive side of things. Whether they're, the goalkeeping situation again, I agree with you, John. If Mignolet is good enough or not is still a question that keeps getting asked, which generally means no. Clavan's not exactly. Is it Clavan or either way?
Yeah,
I think it's him. Whether he's good enough, and the defence, they still haven't seemed to have decided on who's their best centre-back partnership, which I think will not help their scenario. But I do have them down as third because I think that they're going to score a hell of a lot of goals. They've just got that style about them. They're just going to come at you at 1,000 miles an hour. And if they can keep everyone fit, if they keep Daniel Sturridge fit for the whole season, he's going to score 20 goals. He's got that quality. He's just made of glass. So that's why I've got them down in third place. Plus, obviously, Klopp, he's going to be a lot more familiar with the Premier League. They've got Champions League football back, so that who knows what they'll be able to pull off in the last 2 weeks of the window. So it's looking bright for them. I don't think it's enough for them to challenge for the title. I know he said that he would like to, which, he's right in the sense that if you're one of the top 6 clubs and you're not aiming for the title at the start of the season, you're thinking about it wrong. He's certainly got the right attitude to go about it. And if they do keep everyone fit, who's to say that they can't ever run at the title? But chances of that happening, very slim. So that's why I've got them down in third place. Hence I haven't mentioned Manchester United and Chelsea yet, but I'll let you say who you've got down as third now, John.
Well, talking of Chelsea, I've gone for Chelsea to finish third. Again, for the similar reason to Tottenham, they haven't really strengthened enough, I don't think, in the window. Antonio Conte has lost two or three big names. Matic to Manchester United, that's a big loss to them. Also, I think the signings they brought in, I just think they've lost John Terry as well. Obviously, he is to Aston Villa. Obviously, it was probably a question of time. I think Cahill will make a decent replacement for him. I think Cahill will do a good job. Now, it will all depend on whether Diego Costa stays or not. It doesn't look as if he will stay at the club. And then you've got Morata, who came in and played in the Community Shield match, and in the shootout, if you remember, he hit a god-awful penalty that hit the outside of the post and went wide. It was an horrible penalty. Now, the burning question is, can they keep Costa or not? Now, obviously, I don't think Conte is going to lose. I think they're probably going to end up losing Costa. Then there's the problem with Morata. Now, he didn't do himself when he came on as a substitute on Sunday in the Community Shield. He didn't really do himself any favours. Wasn't in the game for most of it. And then when it came to the penalty shootout, his penalty was probably just as horrendous as the Thibaut Courtois penalty. But having said that, it depends on how well he adapts to the league. I don't think, unless they strengthen significantly, I think they're going to have a tough season defending the trophy. Winning it is one thing, but people will find out now how to go against three at the back, because it's going to be tough. And then you've got the David Luiz situation. He likes to bomb forward and all that sort of thing, and he could get found out again. And it all depends. They've lost a lot of key players, and if they can replace them, then they could have a tilt at the title. But I just think that, because of the Manchester club strengthening really well, I just think they're going to pull up a bit short and finish in third place. But I think they'll have an okay season. They'll do enough to finish in the Champions League spots automatically. But as regarding the League Championship, unless they strengthen significantly and replace the likes of Matic and possibly Costa, then I don't think they've got a cat in hell's chance, I'm afraid. Third place. Right.
So then, that leaves us with our top twos. Now, obviously, this will now reveal who we've predicted to win the leagues. Obviously, cover who finishes second first for their reasons. But Who have you got? Obviously, mention who you've gone for first place as well at the same time. Go through both teams' reasons for finishing first and second, respectively. So, who have you got for second place then, John? Who's going to be runners up?
Well, it's a Manchester club, and I've gone for the blue half of Manchester City because I think Pep Guardiola has strengthened significantly, but I think he's missed a trick by obviously what you mentioned about Joe Hart. I think they haven't got the goalkeeper that can give them, well, can save them that 18, 19 points a season, which you need to win the title. And I think that could cost them in the end. They've got a lot of good attacking forwards. Now, it all depends on whether John Stones and the like and company can actually have a good season. Kyle Walker, it'll be a big season for him. He's gone there for 50 million quid. I think that's a very overpriced sum they paid for. So a lot of pressure's going to be on the guy. I do think they are a very good attacking side. Defensively, they could get found out, and I think that's why I've gone for them to finish second. I like the way Pep Guardiola plays. It's a risky formation. It's a risky game that he plays, the ticky-tacky. It worked brilliantly at Barcelona. It worked well at Bayern Munich, but this is the Premier League, mate. And he got found out last year. He can't afford to make the same mistake twice. I think they'll finish second, but I don't think they've strengthened way enough than their neighbours across the way of Manchester.
Will he keep his job if he finishes second?
If he doesn't win a trophy, I think he'll go. He needs to win a trophy this year, and I can't see them winning a trophy, to be perfectly honest. Not the way he plays the game. I think it depends. I think he has to take at least the League Cup a bit and the FA Cup a bit more seriously. He has to at least have a good go in the Champions League because they were nowhere near the closing stages of that last year. He needs to improve big time in the Champions League. Otherwise, I think it'll be on his way at the end of the season.
So then you've gone for United to win the league then?
Manchester United, for obvious reasons. I think they've got the best goalkeeper in the division, David De Gea. He's one of the world's best. I think he's the Premier League's best goalkeeper. He'll save them 19 points a season. I think they've got a very solid back four. Matic, I think, could be the key here because he will give them that protection. Fellaini can be used as a plan B. I like the attack as well, Fellaini, and I think he'll score lots of goals. Rashford can come in and do a job. There's also talk of Zlatan re-signing. If they can get Zlatan in, I think they're going to be unstoppable at the top of the league. I think, and Mourinho, and when he gets a team together for the second season, he's at a club, and we saw this with Chelsea 2 years ago. They can virtually be unstoppable. I just think those two signings, Lukaku and Matic, are going to be the key components. They've got a very good back four, and they've been unbeaten. They've won 23 matches. Okay, they finished fifth or sixth last year, but he knows how not to get beaten. He's got a good record in the Premier League. He knows what it takes to win it, and I just think when you look at it, and I think he will win. I think he will win the league this year. Whether or not, he'll have a go at the Champions League as well. I think they could finish there or thereabouts towards the business of the Champions League as well. And I wouldn't put it past them at least reaching the semi-finals of that. So I think Manchester United will reclaim the Premier League trophy this year, and it would be great for them to win it because it's been far too long, a club of their stature, and they've got a really good stadium. The United fans always get behind their team through thick and thin, and I think this year has got to be Manchester United's year for obvious reasons. I just think those two signings, Mr. Lukaku and Mr. Matic, are going to be the real difference between United and City. And I think United. Oh, by the way, I have United down to win both Manchester derbies for obvious reasons. I just think United have got the whole round package. They've got the squad there. They've got the quality there. If Mourinho utilises that to perfection, I think they're going to take some catching. So United to be champions.
Okay, very interesting with that one. And then my choice, obviously, I still have Manchester United and Chelsea as my last two teams. Now, it was very tough to pick between the two sides, but in second place, I've gone for Manchester United. I think they've improved drastically this season. They may even improve more with re-signing Ibrahimovic, provided obviously he sorts out his fitness. I think with the Champions League as a sideshow, that's going to be a little bit of a distraction. They'll probably go far in it. But in terms of the business they've done, stealing Matic from Chelsea was one of the best pieces of businesses I think I've seen all season. I've never understood why Chelsea sold him. He scored that absolute perler of a goal in the FA Cup semi-finals against Spurs. But yeah, I think they've done really good business. As you just mentioned, Mourinho's sort of drummed into them about how not to lose. I just think they're a little bit short on that winning mentality of players on the pitch. There aren't many players on there that have been champions in England anyway. They've got Carrick, who's got himself another extension, deservedly so. But I think there's still a lot of what's the best way to put it? A little bit of it's hard to describe, but there are players on that pitch who've never really found themselves in a position where they're going to be under massive pressure from teams behind them when it comes to a title run-in. Which I think, as much as Mourinho has been in that position, there aren't many players on there that have been in a title run-in before. Like Fellaini, for example. That would be completely obscene to him. Much like the face he pulled in the Super Cup final. If everyone's seen that, I'll flick it up on screen. I'm sure it's a thing that everyone's seen. But they'll make a big stride forward. They'll certainly be the better club in Manchester, and they'll finish above Liverpool, which will definitely go down as a successful season. And they'll probably pick up another trophy next season. Obviously, they did a mini treble as such with the Community Shield, Europa League, and the League Cup. It would be a good idea if they were to say focus on perhaps winning the FA Cup this year as well. That would be a good addition. As long as they win another trophy and finish in second place, it will be a very good progressive season. Even if they were to finish second, I think they would consider it a successful season. So they will make a big jump forward this year. But I just don't think they'll be able to shade Chelsea. Now, the reason I go for Chelsea, there's a funny reason that I've gone for Chelsea that I'll mention in a moment or two. But they showed last season that, sure, Diego Costa probably isn't going to be there. He'll probably go in January. That's where I imagine he will go, because obviously Atletico Madrid are the main team interested in him, and they can't buy anyone for another 6 months. So that's when I think he'll probably go. But for the most part, they'll still have him, and he'll still do a job for them. If he knows that his future's been sorted out and they've said to him that you can go to Atletico Madrid, they just can't use you for 6 months, so you might as well stay here, keep yourself sharp and fit. That's probably the best way forward for both parties. Their squad depth was still fairly good. Obviously, losing Matic, John Terry, and a few others, they've loaned out a few youth players, which was like Loftus-Cheek, for example, who could do a job, and selling players like Nathaniel Chalobah. They've kind of weakened their position, but they still have all those key players from last season that were key to that run. Towards the end of the season, where they just relentlessly marched towards the title. And I still get the feeling that Conte is going to have drilled that ruthlessness into them. They're still going to steamroller teams. Whether they get found out this season with that style of play, I don't know whether that 3 at the back or 3/5, they're using wing backs, will be found out this season. It'll be interesting to see if that works again. But I think they're pretty much in a similar position to last season. And remember, they started slow last year as well. If they get a good start, they could be a long way ahead of everyone come the end of the transfer window. So remember, it took them to be drummed by Liverpool for them to change in style. They already know how they want to play now. So if they can hit the ground running, they will have one heck of a season. And the other reason that I would put it in, call it superstitious perhaps, but a little fun stat. Every time that Burnley has been in the Premier League, Chelsea have won the league. So we'll go with that. Yeah, I will add that as a key to my decision. Just like, well, we're still in the league, so surely that means Chelsea goes back to back. So Chelsea fans, you should be rooting for us to stay up. As much as I'm not optimistic.
Well, for you anyway, that's for sure.
But every time we're in the league, you win it. So you've got to do something about that, Chelsea. Send us some loan players. We need some players. Send us a striker.
You know that you just put the kiss of death on them now, haven't you?
Hey, we could loan Diego Costa for 6 months if they don't want him. I'm sure he'd love it up north. But yeah,
we'll get to 40 points there quickly and elsewhere.
Yeah. But yeah, that's what we're going for. So I'll quickly recap the top six, the top six that I went for Spurs in 6th, Arsenal 5th, City 4th, Liverpool 3rd, United 2nd, and of course Chelsea 1st. And John, you went for a bit of a different order.
Arsenal 6th, Liverpool 5th, Tottenham 4th, Chelsea 3rd, City 2nd, and Manchester United top.
So quite a bit of a difference, but obviously that may change when the window shuts. Now, just quickly go through what positions you put everyone else. Now, obviously you had 8th place down as West Ham, didn't
Leicester.
you? So if you want to go from them down, just quickly go through it.
So, as I say, it was a toss-up between Leicester and West Ham, but I've gone for Leicester in 8th, so West Ham are 9th. Southampton, another solid season, 10th. West Brom will do enough, will finish 11th. Bournemouth will probably slip back a bit this year, so finishing 12th. Stoke will have a little bit of a fight in the rounds, they'll finish 13th. Watford should do enough with their business to finish 14th. Newcastle, I think, will be the only promoted club that stays up, so they're going to go 15th. Palace may struggle a bit, 16th, and I've gone for Burnley just if they can get 2 or 3 key players in the last 2 weeks of the window. If we can do that, I think we'll finish just outside the bottom 3, maybe a little bit higher, maybe 14th, maybe 15th, if the quality of players do come. So that's what we've gone for as regards the rest of the table.
Okay, excellent. Right, well, so our tables are slightly different, but that's who we've planned it for. Obviously, if we make any changes, we will mention them. The next opportunity of us possibly changing them will be when the window shuts, and then after that it's until after Christmas. So yes, that's what we're going for initially. Whether you stick or twist, we shall see. But if you stick, that means you're being very brave. that no team's going to actually grow a brain cell and go, oh, I need this kind of player, I'll buy that. But we'll see. Maybe Spurs will do business and shoot themselves right up to first place. Who knows? But that goes for the Premier League prediction in terms of the table. Now we get on to the wonderful business of making the predictions for this weekend's games and the game that has happened, which happened to you lot yesterday.
Which by which time I will have commentated on, because it would have been live on the YouTube channel last night. So I'm actually at the time of recording just doing a little bit of prep work for that one. Although I do know the Arsenal team pretty well.
Yeah. So
this week
we can't see into the future, but we can have a good guess, and you never know, we might be right. But we'll start off with Arsenal's game. Now they're playing Leicester, aren't they? Is it home? They're at home to Leicester.
They're at the Emirates, yes.
That's a 7:45 kick-off on a Friday night. So should be a fairly straightforward victory for Arsenal, you would think, on paper. New signings, fresh start for them. They can put the debacle of last season. Both teams, in fact, can put the debacles of last season behind them and start afresh. But is it going to be growing frustration for Arsenal as the season just kicks off, or are Leicester going to just be rolled over by this newly powered Lacazette-fueled Arsenal? It's going to be a tough one to call. I'm going to say Arsenal are going to win at home by 3-1, and Lacazette to get a goal on his home debut. That's what I'm going to go for.
Well, I've gone for exactly the same. I think Lacazette will be a threat this year. I mean, as I said, the only reason I've got Arsenal down to finish 6th is because of the lack of squad depth, and I think they're a bit weak defensively in front of Petr Cech, who's still a top-class goalkeeper. I think Leicester will give them a good match. I think the signing, as I said earlier, with Iheanacho, I think that's going to be a crucial one for them, and I think they'll have a decent season. But I think you've got to back Arsenal for the victory. But I think Leicester will make it difficult for them. But I'm going to say 3-1 as well.
Okay. That's a good way to start. We both agree on the first score. We are probably wrong. Do let us know what the actual score was, and then you can laugh at us. So moving on, we move on to who I think will be the surprise package this season. Watford. They kick off at 12:30 on Saturday, which is today, of course, and they play Liverpool, who who knows what they're going to do this season. Will they make top 4? Will they challenge for the title? Or will they finish outside the top 4? Will they win a trophy? Goodness knows what's going to happen. But going to Watford, first game of the season, newly rejuvenated Watford under the management of Marco Silva, with plenty of signings behind them, is going to be a tough ask on the first day of the season for them, isn't it? It's a tough one to call, and if I'm honest, I'm going to start with the surprise straight away. Well, you could call it a surprise as such, but I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw between these two. I think both of them. It'll be interesting to see how well Andre Gray gets on with Troy Deeney. That is a partnership to watch this season.
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah, so I'm going to say 2-2. I think Gray and Deeney will cause problems, but I think the midfield strengthening that Watford have done will also make it a very difficult task for Liverpool. I can't see a winner. Watford last season were very strong at home. Liverpool weren't the best away from home, which let them down a little bit towards the back end of the season, plus with all their injuries and stuff. But they'll want to start not losing. That would be a positive start. And starting away from home at Watford is always a difficult ask anyway. So I think Liverpool fans would take a point from this one, and obviously, provided that they'll just want to have Coutinho on the pitch, they'll be more concerned about that rather than the result against Watford. So yeah, I'm going to go for 2-2. What about yourself, John?
I'm going to predict the first away win of the season on this particular series, and I'm going to say 3-1 to Liverpool. I think Watford will give them a tough game, and with the signings they made, as I say, Marco Silva's got a decent record in home games wherever he's been. I just think Liverpool will just have that little bit of nous and know-how on the day to see them over the line, and I think if Manny gets a good bit of service and continues at his best, I can see Liverpool winning the game quite comfortably. But I think Watford will make it very difficult for them in large periods of the match, and as a home team you'd expect Watford to have a bit of the play, but I just think Liverpool with their extra bit of quality will just see them over the line. So I'm going to say 3-1 to Liverpool, but I think Watford for large periods will be expected to give Liverpool a bit of a scare, to be honest.
Okay. Then we move on to the first of the 3 o'clock kickoffs. Chelsea, who I've just backed for the title, against Burnley, who I've just backed to finish bottom. What the hell? 5-0 to Chelsea is what I'm going to go for. It's going to be a horrible first day. They can only surprise me, Burnley. If they somehow manage to get anything from this game or lose by just 1-0, I would be very proud of their efforts. But I just think Chelsea will be too strong. The returning champions, they'll be on top form, and yeah, the golfing class will probably show. So yeah, I'm begrudgingly going for 5-0 Chelsea.
Well, I've got to be honest with you. We're not going to make any significant transfers now before the Chelsea game. No. So I have to bear things in mind. I think we'll probably end up going 4-5-1 with Vokesy up front. That does work well. I think we'll give Chelsea a game for a good hour or so, but I just think Chelsea will just have enough wherewithal and enough quality there to win 3-1. I accepted it when the fixtures came out that we had Bob Orp or no Orp winning. I think if we score, that would be an achievement, and I've backed us to score at least 1, but I've also backed Chelsea to score 3. So I just think Chelsea are a different proposition at home. If it had been at Turf Moor, then I would have probably been a bit more optimistic. But at Stamford Bridge, where they don't lose many Chelsea, you've got to, as much as it kills me to say it, and I do kiss the badge with great pride. There you go. I just fancy Chelsea to win the game, unfortunately, 3-1. It pains me to say it, and it probably pains you more saying 5-0, but it still pains me to say 3-1. But we have to give them a game. I think we always give any opposition we have a good game, but I just think we're going to come up ridiculously short with the squad depth we currently have. And I don't think the reinforcements are going to come in time for this weekend. I think probably the best of hope for will be against West Brom next week.
Yes. Then we move on to Crystal Palace Huddersfield. These are all now 3 o'clock kickoffs, borrowing Brighton Man City, which is a bit later, but we'll get to that in a minute. Crystal Palace facing Huddersfield at Selhurst Park. I'll let you go first with this prediction, John.
I think it's going to be pretty close. Huddersfield, this is going to be a real acid test for them. This is Crystal Palace here. You know, they've been now in the Premier League 5 years. They've got a new manager, of course, in Ronald de Boer. You know, this is going to be I think for both managers, going to be a fresh experience for them. I just think Crystal Palace, the home factor for Crystal Palace will just see them over the line. I don't think there'll be much in it. I think Palace will sneak it 1-0. But again, Huddersfield will give a good account themselves. But it depends on how they go about it. I just think there's nothing to choose between them at the moment. But I'm going to go with Palace to sneak it by 1-0.
Okay, I'm going to go for... This is probably going to be one of the more entertaining first games of the season. I'm going to go for 3-2 to Crystal Palace. get the feeling that Huddersfield, they're going to be up for the occasion of being in their first ever Premier League game. Crystal Palace at Selhurst Park is a very big obstacle. Benteke towards the back end and Zaha towards the back end of last season. My goodness me, they were wreaking havoc. If Zaha hits the ground running, he could be in for quite the season. Ironically, after he's declared to no longer play for England and play for the Ivory Coast instead, he now starts playing like a won't say world class winger, but a top quality winger. Yeah, I think it's going to be an entertaining game. It's going to be a great atmosphere. Selhurst Park is always one of the best places to go in terms of atmosphere and noise. But I think Crystal Palace, with their Premier League experience, they will just about shade it by 3-2. And then we will move on to Goodison Park. Everton against Stoke. That's a very old fixture. But obviously Stoke haven't really gone forward in terms of their transfer business, have they? So I think Everton, with a returning Wayne Rooney, that the atmosphere there is also going to be great with him around the place. I've got to back Everton with this one. I'm going to go for 2-0. I think they'll have enough quality to see off Stoke, and I think defensively, the addition of Michael Keane is going to help them immensely. So yeah, I'm going to go for 2-0 to Everton.
I think this is probably the easiest prediction I think I had to make out the rest of the games, because you look at Stoke, they've lost their big player in Arnautovic. He's gone to West Ham. And that's going to be a big blow for Mark Hughes. Everton, despite losing Lukaku, there's the Rooney factors. There's Michael Keane. I think 25 million is a very good deal for them. And I think Keane deserves his opportunity, as we mentioned at the top of the show. I think Everton will. I think you've got to look. You look at the two. There's a huge golfing class between the two teams. Everton don't lose many at Goodison Park. I would certainly go for a 3-0 Everton victory, and I think it'll be a very comfortable victory. And I think Stoke will have to look at the Britannia or the Bet365 to really see if they can get most of their points this season, because I don't think they're going to pick up too many points away from home, considering they've lost probably their bestest player in Arnautovic. And if they don't replace him, I think they could struggle a bit, and that's why I've got them down for 13th in the table. But I think Everton, with the Rooney factor and Michael Keane and Ashley Williams, I think Jordan Pickford's a brilliant signing as well.
Yeah, that too. That went under the radar as well.
Yeah, we forgot to mention him, £13 million. It's a lot for a goalkeeper, but I think he's a class goalkeeper. I think he'll keep a clean sheet, and I think Everton will win very comfortably 3-0.
Then we move to Southampton against Swansea. It's going to be... That's a fairly level match, actually. It's quite good for competitiveness, but I would probably back... Well, I'm going to back Southampton, the home team, against the Swansea team, which hasn't really, as we mentioned earlier, hasn't really done much in the transfer market to strengthen their position. They are without Gylfi Sigurdsson for that match anyway. He's not in the match squad, so he'll be a big miss for them as it is anyway. It'll be interesting to see if Gabbiadini, I think that's his name, can hit the ground running, because he certainly made an immediate impact when he first arrived at Southampton. It'll be interesting to see what he does in a full season for them. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Southampton do. I mean, obviously they had a managerial change in the summer. It was an interesting, almost odd change.
I think it was the most serious decision to get rid of the previous manager, to be fair.
I don't think he did much to deserve to be sacked. But anyway, they're under new management. It'll be interesting to see what players actually feature for them. Obviously, they sold Jay Rodriguez. They've still got hold of Charlie Austin, whether he features for them. Shane Long as well. It'll be interesting how they line up. But I'm going to back them as the home team against the Swansea team, which everyone could probably pick their lineup. Llorente's going to start and all that. So yeah, I'm going to go for. It's going to be a tightly contested one, but I'm going to go for 1-0 to Southampton.
I don't think there's going to be any goals, I'm afraid, at St Mary's this weekend. I'll be honest with you. I think both teams will probably cancel each other out. This is an easy one for me, really. 0-0. I just don't think both teams will have enough on the day to beat any of them to win the game. I just don't think. I think they'll just cancel each other out. We don't know how Southampton are going to new management ship. Swansea may well struggle with Clement as well. Gylfi Sigurdsson, as we mentioned earlier, is not in the team, and that could be a problem. So on that basis, I think you've got to go for a 0-0.
Okay, and then the final 3 o'clock kickoff. We've got West Brom Bournemouth. So I'll let you go first with that one.
I think this is going to be a good game. West Brom, pretty good at the Hawthorns. They were last season. Bournemouth, better at home than they are away. They had a good end to the season. I mean, they did well to finish ninth. I think that will be very difficult to replicate this year. But they've got, I mean, if Eddie Howe has another good season, I can see a bigger club.
Make a difference?
Yeah, it could make the difference, but it's going to be hard to replicate it. The pressure's on how to deliver this year. I think West Brom, with their home record, should do enough for 3 points. I think the signing of Jay Rodriguez has been a terrific business. How disappointing it is from a Burnley point of view. I think Tony Pulis is, as you mentioned in your video last night, I think he's very up there. He's very screwed on in the way he manages football teams. Doesn't give out away. I think West Brom will have enough for the win. I think they'll win by 2-1. But I think Bournemouth will make it difficult for them. But I just think West Brom will just have the know-how, certainly at the Hawthorns, to make it very difficult. I think they'll just do enough to win by 2-1.
I'm funnily enough going for the same scoreline. Tony Pulis sets up his teams well. He makes sure that he's got good squad depth. You know, everyone's about the same ability, so he can rotate the team, and it doesn't really make too much of a difference. They've got one of the more impressive defensive stats. For example, Craig Dawson won the most aerial battles last season. So they're very strong defensively. At the Hawthorns, they're very good. Bournemouth, obviously, with the addition of Jermaine Defoe, he'll probably get them 12-15 goals this season. 15 at a push, but it's certainly a good attacking addition. But West Brom away is the first game of the season. It's going to be a tough one. So yeah, I'm going to go for 2-1 like you. It's going to be a good. It will be a good game though. I'm sure it will be a very entertaining contest. The way Bournemouth play and the way how West Brom like to soak up the pressure. I'm sure it will be a quite exciting one. Then we will move on to the final kickoff of Saturday. It's 5:30, and it's Brighton getting their baptism of fire. They are at the Amex, which is a benefit to them. But when Manchester City roll up to town, it's going to be a very, very tough ask. However, Man City are always there for the taking. Whether Man City's style of play will suit Brighton, whether Brighton will let them have the ball, whether they'll play a counter-attacking style, I really don't know how Chris Hughton intends to set up against Manchester City. But the atmosphere at the Amex is going to be immense. Now,
it's going to be huge, man.
In terms of the results, this is where I think it's already going to start unravelling for Pep Guardiola. I'm actually going to back Brighton for a victory here. I'm going to back them to win by 2-1. I get the feeling it's going to be one of those end-to-end games. Both teams like attacking football. They've both been fairly busy in the transfer market. Obviously, Brighton have been very smart with their business, I must admit. Chris Hughton certainly knows the Premier League. He got he got removed from his job at Newcastle rather ridiculously, and his time at Norwich was fairly good. I mean, I know he left because they weren't really going anywhere, Norwich, but you know, he's good at establishing teams in the Premier League at least. But I do think that Brighton, with the crowd behind them, very much like Burnley when they were at Turf Moor against Manchester United back in 2009, the crowd certainly made a massive difference. The atmosphere was incredible, and the players rose to the occasion regardless of the clear gulf in technical ability. So I think Brighton, they're going to come out on top in this one. It's going to be the first shock of the season, and the first of many for Pep Guardiola this year. I'm going to go for Brighton to win by 2-1.
Well, I'm afraid to say, Brighton fans, as much as I'd love to see your team win on Saturday, and it would be great for the league if that was to happen. But realistically, I have to be realistic in how I predict these scores. I think it's going to be against the teams that are in and around them, like your Burnleys and your Watfords and your Newcastles. That's where they're going to have to get the big results. Now, if they could get a result against Man City, that'd be brilliant. But I don't think they're gonna come anywhere close, I'm afraid. So I'm sorry to dampen it now for Brighton fans, but I think Manchester City will roll up, be professional. They need to start well, obviously. Man City. I mean, Brighton have got a chance, and if they've got you've always got a chance in the Premier League. You know, it's a 2-horse race, but I have to be honest with you. Yeah, I think Brighton will be pretty short. I think the golfing class will be there. I think Manchester City will win 4-1. I think Brighton will make it difficult for a spell, and of course with the crowd behind them, and the Amex is quite a noisy stadium and all that jazz. And they do whip up a very good atmosphere there, reminiscent to the old Goldstone Ground days. But I just fancy Manchester City strongly there. I think they'll win 4-1. But Brighton, I think better days will be ahead for them, and I think they will get results. I just think against the big boys, just think they'll struggle a little bit. And I think realistically, I think you've got to go for a Man City win. So I'm going to back City to win by 4-1. And that's my banker on the South Goal predictor, by the way.
Okay, excellent. Right. Then we move on. We move on to Sunday. Sunday the 13th. Unlucky for some. Oh God, if it was Friday, we'd all be doomed. Well, Tottenham fans would be reminiscing the last time that they met up with Newcastle if it was on the Friday for the 13th. My goodness me, the last time these two teams met, Newcastle drummed Tottenham so badly they ended up finishing below Arsenal. That's how bad it was. But 2 years later, Newcastle have just come back up from the Championship as champions somehow. They host Tottenham at St James's Park as the 1:30 kick-off on Sunday, which it's a big test for Tottenham on the first day of the season. There's a lot of opportunities for the big teams to slip up because the games have been fairly good for opportunities of the big teams slipping up. So tough one to call, really. Newcastle at St James's Park is always a tough ask as it is. We've seen how difficult it is for them to be beaten. That even at 4-0 down, they could still come back and steal something from you, as Arsenal fans may reminisce as well.
Yes.
But the transfer business, the lack of transfer business that Newcastle have done, I think they're going to come up slightly short against Tottenham, who will be wanting to start on the front foot. Which I imagine is probably we're pretty sure that Chelsea will start on the front foot, and whatever Chelsea do, Tottenham are always trying to equal or better right now because that's where they are in their current state. So in terms of Newcastle, as we said, they didn't really strengthen enough. They've basically got a Championship squad of a few decent, with the odd Premier League quality player, but it's not going to be enough for them to get anything against Spurs. Be interesting to see. Moussa Sissoko, is he still at Tottenham?
I'm not sure.
I would have to look that up, but I don't think he is. Let me just quickly, because it would be interesting to see what kind of reception he would get at St James's Park, because he wasn't exactly. He's still playing for Tottenham Hotspur. Whether he would actually play, I doubt it, because he basically.
It wasn't exactly Mr. Popular, was he?
No, he didn't. He would play a blinder, but then the following match he would put absolutely no effort in. I mean, if you want to look at, if you want to see what Newcastle fans had a problem with, go watch the True Geordie's opinion on him. It's quite brilliant.
Yes, I think we couldn't go the first episode without mentioning that certain person, could we?
Oh no, of course. But, I'm going to have to back Tottenham to win this one by 2-1. I think Newcastle will run them close. It'll be a tightly contested contest. Obviously, it's what I just said in the previous word. Brilliant sentence. It's going to be a tightly fought match. It probably would have been a better sentence. It being at St James's Park, the crowd will be up for it. It's their first game back. They'll probably be chanting champions like we did the previous season, despite the fact that it means nothing in this league. But yeah, Tottenham I think will just have enough quality. Harry Kane will probably hit the ground running, and Tottenham to win by 2-1 to stay close to Chelsea, basically.
Well, I've got exactly the same, 2-1, but I think Newcastle will give them a tough game. 52,000 screaming Geordies are behind them. I think it's going to be a tough baptism for Spurs. It's not easy going up to St James's Park, I'll be honest, but the crowd will be up for it. I think Newcastle will run them close, but as I think the lack of depth will show in this particular game. I think for Newcastle, I think they'll do enough. If they can get enough points against the teams around them, I think they'll be okay. So I wouldn't be too disappointed even if they lost, even if they did lose. I think Newcastle will have enough, and I think they've got a very good manager. Remember, Rafa Benitez is no mug. He's a Champions League winner. So I think his management style will do more than enough. And if only they'd have had him a couple of years ago, earlier, they wouldn't have been in the Championship last year. I'm convinced of that. So, although it will end in defeat for Newcastle on opening day, I think there's loads of other games where they can pick up significant points, and I think they'll be okay. But Spurs should have enough in the tank, and I'm going to go same as you, 2-1, but I think it'll be a battle royal up at St James's.
And finally, at 4 o'clock, it's the Battle of the Uniteds. Manchester United at Old Trafford against, Chicharito Hernandez makes his return to Old Trafford in his first game of the season with West Ham, in what should be a fairly entertaining contest between two teams that have done incredible business in the transfer window. But I would think Manchester United would have the strength to overcome West Ham United. I'm going to back Manchester United to win by 3-1. Hernandez definitely will score for West Ham. I'm sure of it. But yeah, I think United have enough strength. The addition of Lukaku, who scored against teams like West Ham last season, he will probably score as well. So yeah, I'm going to go for 3-1 to Manchester United. I just think at Old Trafford, opening game of the season, they'll want to show off their new signings, and they'll have enough to beat West Ham.
I think this is going to be a very tough day at the office for West Ham United. I think they'll be okay. I mean, they'll finish in the top 10. There's no doubt about it. The signings they made. I think Arnautovic, we didn't really mention when we were previewing them earlier. Also, the fact that they've got Joe Hart in goals and stuff like that, I think that's another good signing. So they've done magnificent business, but I think United have done far better business. I think at Old Trafford as well, West Ham don't particularly have a too good a record there. I would say Manchester United to win 4-0. I don't think the little P's are going to score against them. But West Ham, I think they'll be okay. I think top 10 will be good, but I think it'll be a bad day at the office for them. But I think it's ultimately going to be, if they can hit the ground running at the London Stadium, I think that's what's going to determine their season, I think. And not so much this game that's on there, but I think you can't look really any more than 4-0 United, as far as I'm concerned. But I think West Ham will be all right. I think United, as I said earlier, will be champions. There you go.
Okay. Well then, that rounds off the first episode of LTF of our predictions. So we've predicted, well, between the two of us, we've both backed different people to win the league. Our predictions have been fairly similar for the scorelines, but in terms of who wins the Premier League and who goes down, we've had fairly different opinions. Feel free to post your top 6s and bottom 3s in the comments section down below. Let us know what you think of your club's transfer business as well, how well they've strengthened. But you can join us for another episode of LTF this time next week. But more importantly, we've got the LTF Extra Time, where we will be discussing the particular subject of extra time this week will be Burnley's transfer policy. So for Burnley fans, that'll be something to watch. I know that a lot of them had their opinion on the Andre Gray scenario on both my video about it the other day and John's. So it'll be interesting to see what everyone thinks of that. But if you could join us for extra time, that'll be excellent. But until then, we'll see you all in the next episode of LTF, which will be next week on Saturday. But thank you, John, for joining me as usual.
Thank you very much indeed. And, good to be back.
Yes, it is great to be back. It's time. It's all time for the roller coaster ride of the Premier League to start again, and we'll be here every weekend for all of it. But thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next week. Cheerio.
See you next week. Bye bye.